Hi everyone and welcome to another sewing video. So this is going to be a Lolita sewing video because I was looking through my collection and I have a few themed dresses. So I have a Phantom of the Opera themed dress, I have a My Fair Lady themed dress, I have another dress which, if you've seen one of my previous videos, is by Lady Sloth, and although it's sort of Slavic beastry, sort of based on those sorts of myths and legends from that sort of Eastern European area, it technically sort of feels like it's Witcher themed. And I thought, why is there no Lord of the Rings themed dress? You know, like that would be something which I would love, because like the way hobbits dress and sort of like the elegance of all the elves and so, it just seems to lend itself towards actual like Lolita fashion. And so I thought, why don't I design a Lord of the Rings themed cord? So this is going to be part one where I take you through the shirt, because I decided that rather than do this as like a one-piece dress, I would do it as a JSK and a shirt. So I hope you enjoy this part one where I take you through my designs and the materials and stuff that I got and how I made the first part, which is the shirt. So it's probably quite difficult to see because this is kind of a really light drawing of it, but we've got like this shirt with the really long sleeves, like the elf-like sleeves. And then we're going to have this JSK, which is going to have this little tiered underskirt for it. And then hopefully I'm going to do like some embroidery here. I was thinking maybe like the white tree of Gondor, and I thought that would look quite nice. And then across the top I'm going to do a little bit of beading here. So here's a little bit of a better, more clearer picture of it. Sort of, this was another rough idea I had for it, but I think I'm definitely going to go with this one. Like, this is my favourite one out of all the ones that I've done, so it's just me transferring this to the book kind of thing. So I'm going to do this type of skirt with not that bodice, but maybe that bodice, but I need to get it out and have a look at the back and see what the different bodice types are. So they're both sheared, so it probably will be more like this one here, and then I need to figure out which shirt I'm gonna do. So I need to get it open and have a proper look at the patterns inside it.
So you're making more of a JSK then?
Yeah, I'm making a JSK. Actually, that might have the right sort of, I might just have to make that collar a little bit smaller. The arms I'll definitely have to take from another pattern though, but I've got in here somewhere some fantasy medieval pattern ones, so I'll take the sleeves from that if I can find it. There's too many stuff in here. Is it this one? Yeah, sorry. Nope, not that one. That one. This one. So, because obviously this is like supposed to be Arwen's dress, but like their own recreation of it, so I'll probably take the sleeves from this pattern, but I will have to alter them because I could only get this pattern in a really large size because it's quite an old Simplicity pattern, so I'll have to alter them to make them smaller. But I did that before on my Galadriel dress. So I read through all the patterns before starting so that I knew all the different steps and could work out where I was making the alterations and adding the two patterns together, so that I didn't get part way through and realise, oh, I needed to cut out this piece that I'd actually decided not to cut out. And then I wrote down a list of everything that I needed to do, so that I had sort of got something to follow, so I knew when I was using one pattern and then moving to the other pattern and using that one, and just to sort of keep track of everything that I was doing, as this was quite a big project. After that, I started to cut out all the different pattern pieces that I would need. I had to be quite careful with this because obviously this sort of tissue paper that they use for patterns can be quite delicate, and it's a bit tricky to get them to unfold, especially when they've been sort of like folded up for so long. For this project, I knew that I needed to make quite a thorough mock-up where I was testing how the different pieces attached together and the little alterations that I was going to need to make it look like my designs. To do this, I used a plain cotton material that I bought specifically for this mock-up, as I was sort of running low on the calico that I use, and I knew that I wouldn't have enough material to do mostly the sleeves and the actual dress itself. Most of the alterations turned out to be quite simple. I think the collar was one that was quite difficult, and working out how to attach the sleeves, there had to be a little bit of adjustment there, as the sleeve heads were very different in size to the actual shirt ones. One, because it was a different pattern, and two, because I hadn't got the other pattern in the same size. For the mock-up of the shirt, I decided to only make one sleeve, as there weren't differences between the left and right sleeves for this particular pattern. Once I was happy with the mock-up, I took it all apart and used those pieces to cut out the pattern pieces from the main fabric, which was this really gorgeous silk that I had bought, which if you saw my video about my fabric stash, you'll have seen it then. The main issue that I had with this fabric is that it was very slippy, and so I decided to do the entire shirt by hand, as I was worried about it sort of moving all over the place when I was using my sewing machine. Some of the pieces also had to be cut out in interfacing as well, mainly for the collar and the placket at the front of the shirt. Before I started attaching all the pieces together, I made all the darts in the front and back pieces, and this just made it easier doing it this way because I was able to iron the pieces without having lots of other fabric in the way. And also I started on the front placket as well for the buttons. As this was such a beautiful lightweight silk that was very prone to fraying, I made the decision to French seam all of the seams in this. So that means I sewed wrong sides together first and then trimmed the seams down and then sewed them right side, but I also ironed them in between as well, as this helps you get a much smaller and neater seam. It also meant that the process of making this shirt though was a much longer process. And it also meant that when I started a seam, I couldn't sort of leave it. I had to make sure that I sewed it the wrong way and then the right way quite quickly, as if it started to fray, that would make it very difficult to then flip it. I used iron-on interfacing for this project, and as you can see, the fabric clearly moved around quite a lot when I was trying to cut it out as opposed to the interfacing, and this did kind of make the collar a little bit trickier and the front placket trickier to do, but it also did help once they were ironed together, stabilizing it while I was sewing everything. Throughout this project, I made sure that I was following the instructions quite carefully, and this really did make it easier attaching these more trickier elements. My issues with the fabric moving around when cutting it out wasn't really too much of an issue with the front placket, but I found the trickiest element with that issue was the collar, because I did need a little bit more excess material than I had, but I managed to work around it, and we did sort of manage to get it sort of pulled into place. So with the main body of the shirt done, the next thing to do was to move on to the sleeve pattern and start making the sleeves. So this was quite a big task because these sleeves are absolutely huge, and they also have to have these little channels in them so that they can be sort of ruched up. And so this just took forever with this material, you know, having to do all these sort of like tiny little seams and making sure they weren't fraying while I was trying to create these little channels, and then just the huge job of hemming the edge of the sleeves. Another thing to mention about this material as well that made it really difficult to use is the fact that there was a wrong side and a right side to this material, but in certain lights it was really hard to tell which side was the right side and which side was the wrong side. So this made it really fun trying to do these sleeves because there's no sort of indicator to know which sleeve is which because they're both the same. When I had finally finished making these really long channels, I then had to insert some ribbon and then attach them to the top of the sleeve so that then the whole sleeve could be inserted into the main body of the shirt. I also French seamed the sleeve seam, so yeah, again that took absolutely ages, and I did have to trim off a little bit of excess on the sleeve, as with the silk the patterns had sort of moved a little bit and the silk had moved underneath. With that done, the last thing to do was to attach the buttons and sew in the buttonholes, which again I did by hand, so it took ages. This actually probably was the quickest part because once you've done one buttonhole you sort of start to do them quicker and quicker. And then the shirt was done. So yeah, I decided not to add the last button on the bottom as I thought, because it's going to be underneath a JSK. I thought there wasn't really a need to put too many more buttons, and I thought it would help the shirt sit better with like a petticoat. Thank you so much for watching this video, and let me know in the comments what you think. What are your thoughts on this first part, and are you excited to see the next part, and what are your ideas? Do you like my design? Like, what would you do if you were going to do a Lord of the Rings themed cord? So as always, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye.
How's it going?
How's it going? Darts are a painful process.
Why is that?
Because I have to sew like that. How does that even...